Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everybody. Hello, Mavericks and new viewers. Great to have everybody here watching from wherever you are in the world tonight. A lot of Canadians, though, as usual, because up here in Kanakistan, we're very worried about the impact of tariffs and Trump's plan to maybe turn the country into the 51st state. He just went through with this plan to impose 25% blanket tariffs on steel and aluminum. He did that just a short time ago today. And tonight, to help us make sense of all of that, is Major General Paul Vallely, who is he's been pretty active in supporting the freedom movement, even the Freedom Convoy, which you may not be aware of. He was sort of part of that, but he's a retired U.S. Major General, and he's going to join us here tonight because I know that he has direct ties to the president and speaks to him from time to time, has spoken to him, has even provided some advice, and I think he's still, even now through an organization that he's set up, provides some information to some levels of government. So we'll have to clarify exactly what his, I guess, involvement or where he's at with his retirement or semi-retirement and what he's doing to support freedom. And we'll do that on the other side of this.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, let's bring in our guest for tonight. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program. It's an honor to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Rick. The pronunciation of my name is actually an old Irish name, Vallely.
Vallely. You see, I'm just an aging Anglophone up here in Kanakistan, and I hear your name pronounced in many ways. So thank you for clarifying that for us tonight. Maybe you can offer some other clarity on your background for those people who maybe aren't familiar with you and your work.
Well, I've been on the earth for 85 years, Rick. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, went to West Point in 1957, graduated in 1961 from the military academy, went to Airborne Ranger School, infantry school, then was assigned to the 82nd Airborne in Germany for 3 years. 65, came back to the States, then went to Vietnam for my first tour, back to the United States, back to Vietnam, and then my last assignment was the Deputy Commanding General of the U.S. Army Pacific, and retired as a Major General.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of things even since then. I know you spent some time in Syria.
Yep.
Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Well, in 2012, I was requested by a group of 10 Syrian generals who had defected from Bashar Assad and formed the Free Syrian Army. And so they wanted me to advise them. So I flew with my Middle East expert to London and into Turkey and down to Antakya, which is right on the border with Syria. And then I went in with 400 Syrian members of the Free Syrian Army to Aleppo and back out. We tried to get air support from Obama to support the Free Syrian Army at that time, but Obama wouldn't provide it. And of course, then that morphed into what we see today with remnants of that Free Syrian Army, but linking up with the offshoot of Al Qaeda there under Subani, I think his name is now, new president. So, and then I've spent a lot of time in Israel, time in Iraq. So I've been really focused on the Middle East, I guess, since about 2012.
Yeah, and I mean, I really want to talk to you about Canada because I know
Sure.
that you know you're well versed in that, and you have some pretty strong opinions, I think, there too, that may not really align with mine, being a Canuckistanian up here, um, and a loyal Canadian patriot. That being said, you also have, you know, a real depth of knowledge in the Middle East. And what do you make of what's going on with this situation with Hamas tonight, and these new developments with the hostages?
Well, Trump just announced an hour ago on U.S. television that if all the hostages are not released, I think it's midnight, either Friday or Saturday of this week, then all hell's going to break loose, as he promised to do. So he's laid it out to Hamas, and they have to come forth. And you know, when Trump says something, he does it.
And why do you think Hamas came out and said that they weren't going to release any more hostages in violation of this ceasefire agreement?
Because they play games all the time. That goes back to Arafat. He continually played games with everybody, you know, and they really don't give a damn about their people. I mean, I feel bad for these young Arabs that live in Gaza and have lived there, and the lack of education, lack of jobs. And basically, that's what Trump is laying out, that Gaza can be turned into an enterprise zone that will have Arabs, but also provide schools, hospitals, and housing. The other option is three cities in the Sinai. If Egypt and Saudi Arabia gives up some of the territory for those that have come out of Gaza. But we've got to look to the future, not to back. And I think he'll get support of Saudi finally, the Saudis, UAE, Qatar. I think they'll come together and put together a package to develop that area. But that's the future. That's what it's got to be. They can't come back to all that rubble. There's nothing there.
So, did you think the negative reaction to Trump's comments about owning Gaza was an overreaction?
Oh yeah, he puts it out there, and then he sees how they react, and some of them bite on some stuff. And, that's what he does. He's the master of the negotiation, and it works very well for him. So yeah, I think he threw some ideas out there. We're not going to put any troops over there. We can put up some money along with the Saudis and the Qatarians and others to really make Gaza a beautiful place on the Mediterranean. I think that's what it's all about. And I think it's futuristic. I think it's doable, and Trump can work with the Saudis just like he did on the Accords back then that Biden basically threw aside. So I'm very optimistic.
Now, but before we kind of get into, you know, your thoughts on what Trump is doing with Canada,
Right.
um, let's talk a little bit about how you've become focused on Canada, and I think that really kind of goes back to the Freedom Convoy. Is that about right?
Yeah, somehow I had been doing some radio shows out of Edmonton for about a year, and they connected me to some of the people that were putting together the convoy to go all the way across Canada, west to east. And I talked to some people up in Alberta, up in Calgary as well. And so I sort of tracked them all the way across what was happening. And that's how I sort of got embedded with a number of groups in Canada, and really two or three groups of the First Nation people up there. I have usually a conference call with them about twice a month. And then some other individuals, I don't want to mention their names, but of course they're working on trying to replace the government there in Quebec and Ottawa with more conservative leadership. And that's why we want to make Canada great again. Get rid of all these communist left-wing ideologues like Trudeau. I mean, this guy is absolutely worthless. He's like our Gavin Newsom in California. I think they're brothers. I think I've said that to you before. But Canada needs new positive leadership. They need conservative leadership. Though that leadership focuses on security, economics, justice system that's fair, And then there's a future for Canada. But unless Canada changes into a good government, I think you're going to have a revolution up there.
Well, so, oh my gosh. I mean, people say about, similar things about the U.S. at times that, you might end up in some sort of a civil war. But,
Yep.
right now, I certainly see the division up here in Canada deepening, the separatist movements, both in Western Canada and Quebec, bubbling up to the surface again in a really hot way. People in Alberta in particular. What's your take on all that?
Well, I think it's happening. People are very unhappy. As I say, I talk to Canadian groups almost every week or two, and they're just so disheveled that weapons taken away from them, freedom's taken away from them, control of the press. You get arrested if you say something wrong. And there's no freedom of the press in Canada. It's all run out of, I guess, Quebec and Ontario. I don't know. And people just feel like they're shrouded all the time. They can't do what they can't live and be happy. And so if Canada doesn't get new leadership, you are going to have a revolution up there.
Hmm. What else have you done in your background? You have you were involved a lot with psychological warfare,
Right.
things like that as well, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I find that fascinating.
Well, when I was a colonel, they gave me the 7th Psychological Operations Brigade, based out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and California, where I had units. And basically, it was to develop, from a strategic standpoint and tactical, information, what they call information warfare today. Basically, in psychological operations, you're developing media, you're developing even leaflet drops they had in World War II. That was all psychological operations. So if you're trying to influence a group in a positive way, it's called basically white operations. And if you're trying to influence an enemy, like we did World War II, where they put out the word we were going to attack in the north at Calais, the Allied forces uh, attacked in the Normandy area of France. And so psychological operations have been used by even back to the Romans. You can track all the things that were done then. So, but now they don't like to use psychological operations. So they call it information management or influence operations, I guess they use today. It's a little calmer, doesn't look like you're getting everybody's mind and trying to affect the way they think. It's not that at all. It's really to influence a certain way of movement. And it's a military operation, basically, but now it's been converted into this type of warfare that we call information warfare.
Yeah, in
Used
fact, and you've written, I think, fairly extensively about this stuff. You have a number of books out.
Right.
I know this is available on Amazon, along with a few others. This is what is this one here? This is Invisible Treason in America. What are some of
Right.
your other books too?
Beyond treason, betrayal and treason, where we've connected all the dots of what has happened in America, of people that have betrayed our government, have dismantled it. Biden, Obama, two that have committed treason. George Soros, I could go down the list. But we connect the dots and have all the data of what they've done to dismantle and destroy our country. And that's why we would have been headed to a revolution if Trump hadn't been elected. So Beyond
Mhm.
Treason, Betrayal and Treason, The Dismantling of America, they're all on Amazon.com, or you can get them on our website, which is standupamericaus.org.
Here, let me bring that up. It's Stand Up America.
AmericaUS.org.
Okay. All
I'm the
right.
chairman of the foundation.
And so, what exactly is that organization? What's the purpose?
Well, we're 20 years old. We've been around. Lieutenant General Tom McInerney and I founded it in Washington, D.C. And basically, it was to monitor national security primarily, though we get into economics and other things as well. Excuse me.
So there are articles on here. Um, I think
Right,
down here too, it said that you still kind of collect intelligence with
right,
groups in some other countries, and then provide some of that information to? Who do you provide that to? What levels of government?
Well, I have my connections in government. For example, we're working on a project now off of Chile, 850 square miles that the CFP Chinese want to get that's south of Panama. And Panama Canal, of course, is an issue right now as well, as if you listen to Trump. And basically, it would give the Chinese control of a port in South America with rail links all the way over to the Atlantic Ocean. And so we consider that a national security threat. So we've prepared a plan for Trump to look at this. And this just came about in the last week. Of course, we've been following the Middle East very quickly. I mean, very well, I would say over the last several years, very intensely. And then, of course, we provided Trump a plan for restructuring of our Pentagon, our military. We also, with my team, came up with a plan to take down the cartels once Trump was elected. Mm-hmm. So those are just some of the things. We do a lot of plans. We do events, speaking events, for example. Our publication division is very busy. Our newsletter comes out every week on Friday. That's headed up by Ray DiLorenzo. And you can sign up for our newsletter on our website, just your name and your email, standupamericaus.org. So that's just some of the things we do, Rick.
So how do you go about collecting the intelligence? You have people like in different countries. I think you mentioned China, right. Probably Mexico as well, and obviously Canada.
We have a Canada team made up of about 8 people. We have a China team made up of about 4 Chinese Americans. 2 of them have been members of the Chinese Communist Party. And then we have people in the UK. We have people in Moscow. We have people in France. And so that pretty much gives us an opportunity, and also out of Tel Aviv as well, in Jerusalem. So from that, we can extract information and synthesize it so we can put out the truth to people based on fact, not on politics.
So during the Freedom Convoy, I don't really know Norman Traversy. I'm aware of him, but I think that he has said on other podcasts that you were very helpful to him when he was involved with the Freedom Convoy. What were you doing to assist Norman and other people involved in that protest?
Well, it was sort of interesting. I'm trying to think of his name, Pat.
Pat King?
Yeah, Pat King sort of headed that whole thing, as I understand. And I had talked to him as they were going cross country. And I told him, I said, well, if you're going to go inside Quebec, don't go in a straight line because you're going to get jammed up. I said, if you're going to do something like that, you sort of got to come in from all sides of the city, and then you'll get some reaction. Of course, they brought in a lot of police and military to stop the convoy, and then stole their money, arrested many, as you know, and so it didn't work out as well as it should have.
Right. So even as they were there, and I mean they were there for about 3 weeks, as I recall.
Yeah. I don't remember now, but I was talking to him every day.
Yeah, and Norman, I think, indicated that you even sort of had a map of Ottawa up on your wall, and you were conversing with him and so on.
No, I didn't have any map on my wall. That was my wall there. There's no maps.
Okay. So yeah, but I guess you were just in contact, and you provided a little bit of advice.
Just wanted some advice. That's all. That's all I was giving. Unpaid advice. Take it or leave it. And so anyhow.
Right.
That's what got me interested in Canada so much. What was really going on up there with the citizens and the First Nation people.
Yeah, well, it certainly took me aback. I was very upset with the way the government responded to the pandemic, and it was very disappointing. And I got kind of angry when Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act. I said that Canada died that day, and it hasn't been the same since. Right. Even though it's been rescinded, and things seem to be sort of almost getting back to normal, but it hasn't really ever returned to the way that it was. Right. I don't know that it ever will.
No, it won't. That's why you've got to look to the future in Canada. What you want as a government, you want to be a 51st state, you know. So a lot of things are going to be happening, Rick, in the next year. I'll tell you, it's warp speed down here in the United States right now.
Well, there's a phrase that we've heard from the past that maybe Trump would like to forget about, Operation Warp Speed. Um, uh, I hate to look back and I try to forget those days.
Yeah,
Um,
I do too. I look into the future as much as we learn from the past, right?
yeah,
We
yeah.
learn from the
Well,
past, so we don't make the
theoretically,
same mistakes in the future. You know.
yeah. So I mean, you do advise, I guess, on your website, I think it said that you provide information to the Department of Defense,
Right.
CIA, Trump, um,
Who knows where it all ends up?
right? And you just wrote an article for your Substack called Canada, America's Orphaned Cousin. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because this is exactly the subject matter that we're really kind of digging into here tonight, whether we should be the 51st state. And I guess you're an advocate for that.
Well, I'm not. No, neither way. I mean, it's up to the Canadians.
Yeah.
I don't know how it would work out, and hopefully Canada would get some new leadership so they can remain Canada. There's a lot of Canadians that don't believe Canada is a real country. That it was just it was a corporation, never really was a separate country. So all of that, there's a lot of Canadians believe that. Basically, no, we are cousins. We're brothers, sisters, cousins, and I live 40 miles south
Yeah.
of Canada, south of Quebec, in northern Montana. And I think half the golfers come down here during the summertime to play golf. And of course, we go up to Banff every once in a while. And so we are cousins in a way. I mean, go back to the Revolutionary War days.
Hmm.
The fights that were in Canada.
I don't want to go back to the Revolutionary War days. I don't. And I don't want to go back to the War of 1812 either,
No, no.
frankly.
But
Uh,
we have to understand history, right?
yes, we do. We absolutely do.
Yeah.
And I'm so old. I am history, or getting to be history, because I remember when we could cross the border, just show your driver's license
Right.
and cross, right? But boy, things sure changed on 9/11.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So yeah, we have a lot of things in common. It's the politics and trade and President Trump, like myself, we're tired of getting ripped off by countries all around the world to take advantage of us.
so do you think that Canada is really ripping off the U.S.?
Sure.
Why? How? Explain to me.
Well, I can't go into all the details. Trump already did that this week. I
Yeah.
won't say ripping off the trade imbalance and so on. And you
See,
know,
I take exception to it as a Canadian,
yeah,
and as someone who has studied economics a little bit, when he says that the U.S. has a $200 billion trade deficit. Sometimes it's 250 with him, sometimes it's 200. I think he kind of takes liberties with the numbers, because everything I've read indicates it's about 40 billion a year, and if you take energy out of that, it's actually a trade surplus the other way. And plus, the energy helps fuel your economy. I just don't see how it's like a ripoff or, as he puts it, a subsidy. I don't quite get it
yeah.
unless you're trying to look at it through the lens of defense spending. Would that be a factor here?
I don't think so. Our new Treasury people, they have all that data on the trade. Like you say, numbers lie, and liars. What do they say?
Yes.
Liars.
Well, you can make stats say anything you want.
Yeah.
You can do
So
that.
I'm not an economist on all that, so I don't know what number he's working off of. But anyhow, Canada and America will come to some conclusion here shortly.
Yeah. In your article, you say every Canadian is an American.
Yeah, I
Um,
heard that.
yeah, you said it. You wrote it in your Substack article, which I did read.
Which means we're
Um,
cousins. That's basically what I'm saying there.
okay.
Yeah.
So
All
what advantages would Canadians have joining the U.S.? I mean, you're here, make your case, because I know you have a
well,
lot of people in our chat who are going to support you, because every time I say, like, come on, guys, save Canada, I get kicked in the shins by the people in the chat. So they're on your side here, sir.
well, what Trump is really looking at now is the Chinese expansion. We're looking at the Silk Belt, their Belt Road Initiative, how they will control almost 40 ports now in Central and South America, with more coming. And so Trump, when he looks at the North Pole and the Russian influence in the Arctic region, very big. Russia controls that Arctic region now. I don't know whether you knew that or not.
Yeah, they have
Very,
several
very
bases up there.
sophisticated ice
Yeah.
bunkers and freighters and so on and so forth. And so he wasn't out. I mean, he was pretty accurate about Greenland. And it's about 50-50 in Greenland now that like to join the United States, whether it's a state or a territory. But we want to control that for national security reasons. Uh, and I think what they only have, 40,000 people up there. Only out of them, there's only about 4,000 Danes. And many of the people up there, those are like the Canadians, for or against. But Trump is looking at the whole, what we call the Monroe Doctrine, Rick, which was control of the North, Central, South America, that whole thing. And that's when Russia came into Cuba that caused the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so Trump really wants to look at securing this whole thing from the Arctic down to the tip of South America, and working with the nations there to ensure that national security of those countries is very strong, and basically they can take care of themselves. I think we will take back the Panama Canal some way. We gave it to them for $1. They turned it over to the Chinese, and the amount of money they charge our Navy and ships to go through is unbelievable. So, again, Trump's looking at this whole thing from the Arctic down to the Antarctic. And the Antarctic they're looking at too because of all the minerals there.
Well, there's some people who feel that Trump is also taking, or he kind of is looking at our minerals and other resources up here in Canada.
Yeah.
I think that's fair, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of shared resources, but that's, I think it's all out there now, and it'll settle out here after Trump's in for a while. Just look what he's done in 3 weeks.
Well, he's turned the world upside down, that's for sure. Yeah.
He'll meet with Putin here shortly, and the Ukraine-Russia conflict will be ended. Very confident of that. And I think he'll visit Xi in China and the Rocket Man in North Korea. But that's what Trump, he meets person to person. Biden could never do that. Biden would fall asleep or fall out of the chair. And so now that's what true leaders do. And when you've written The Art of Intimidation or Influence, Trump's the master in the world.
I was saying 2 years ago, and no one was listening to me, that I said Canada is in play. I couldn't really tell, exactly what was going on, but I saw so many signs that, there was a struggle, a competition on to secure Canada internationally, right? Whether it's I couldn't tell if it was China or Iran, Russia, the U.S., maybe a combination of all of it, but a tug of war of some kind, a competition going on to take control of this country. And then when I saw social media influencers like Tim Pool, Jackson Hinkle saying things like, I think we should just take over Canada. And then when Tucker Carlson came up and phoned the Prime Minister's office and said, I'm coming to Canada to liberate your country. I said, I don't think he's joking. Everyone thought, it's that he's so funny. No, I said, I think there's something serious behind it. In fact, I phoned the Prime Minister's office myself the next day, and I also left a message on Trudeau's answering machine. And I said, are you going to arrest Tucker Carlson at the border? Just curious for coming up here and threatening to take over the country. But anyway, that was a joke.
Well, the other thing is the Chinese own Vancouver. The banks, that's all Chinese out of Hong Kong. Okay? and they've influenced a lot of Canadian institutions as we've had here. And
What do you mean China
well,
owns
the
Vancouver?
two Chinese that worked in the lab up there at the university in Winnipeg,
Hmm.
that was traced back to Wuhan. We know a lot of the precursors were coming from China to make fentanyl in Canada.
Well,
Now,
I mean, in fairness, we don't really, I mean, there's no, I hear things like that, and there was that they did allow like a set kind of a security breach there, but what exactly um, was taken or what we don't really know at this
our
point.
people know.
Yeah.
No, they've been tracking it pretty closely.
Okay. And
And
with regard to Vancouver, what do you mean China owns it?
the banks, look at all the Canadian land that the Chinese have bought in Canada, thousands and thousands of acres,
Hmm.
just like in the United States.
Well, I mean, I do know that there are new regulations that have been brought in various
Haven't done
provinces and
anything the Chinese.
municipalities to pull back on specifically Chinese investment in the real
Well, they
estate
may have,
market.
but it's already
Mhm.
been done. China, get your people up. They'll tell you how many acres are owned by the Chinese.
Yeah, I have a
The
friend actually
Chinese
who
control
owns a.
banking.
I have a friend who's in that business who sells um, farmland for investment purposes. So I'm well
Yeah,
versed in that.
that's what it is.
Hmm.
That's what it is. But all the major banks are all run out of Hong Kong and Vancouver. They own them.
The Canadian banks? No,
Yeah.
no. We have
No,
pretty
I'm
stringent.
sorry, not the Canadian banks, the Chinese banks that are work out of Vancouver. Let me put
Oh
it
well,
that way.
yeah, we do have some foreign banks
A
in Canada.
lot.
That's true. In fact, Trump was kind of fibbing there as well. He said that we don't allow U.S. banks into Canada, and that's actually not true. We do have U.S. banks up here, like J.P. Morgan, Chase, some others, and they're here, but they
Yeah,
have to comply with Canadian regulations. We do have,
sure,
a different system.
sure.
So that's actually the truth again, but he
Yeah,
takes liberty with things because
yeah.
he's
Well, they
hyperbolic.
all do to a degree, except he's
Yeah,
mostly right. They're not.
yeah. Um,
He's,
so yeah,
he's pretty damn sharp at what he knows and how he puts it out there. Some people just pulls it out of his hat. No, he doesn't. He's thought about it before.
hmm
That's
so
why he's so successful.
yeah. So with regard to your article in on Substack again, how do you view Canada? Because you said that some people don't view Canada as a real country. Um, and I've run into people like that, and I see that you kind of subscribe to that sort of thinking. Is Can you elaborate a bit on that? And is that why you think that it? I think from your point of view, it's like Canada should become part of America again, not that it's would become a part of America for the first time. Can
I
you
think it would
elaborate on that?
strengthen the continent from a national security standpoint,
Yeah.
for farming, for mining. I think some better relationship with Canada would be very positive for both countries.
Okay.
And especially, if we don't know what's going to happen in the future with China. Are they going to attack? They're planning an attack on Taiwan. Are they going to try to attack us in Canada?
Hmm.
Uh, Chinese are very smart. They're very clever. That's why there's a Belt Road Initiative has gone all the way across the plains of Asia, into the Middle East, into Africa, Central South America, into Vancouver, into the United States, San Francisco, very influential in San Francisco, which has a large Chinese population.
I know that there is a lot of concern about drug trafficking,
Right.
smuggling, precursors for fentanyl coming into Canada from China,
Right.
also coming into Canada from the United States, through Mexico up into the U.S. and then into Canada. Um, Peter Navarro just a week ago indicated there are concerns on the U.S. side about Mexican drug cartels up here on the
Yeah.
Canadian side of the border. You must know something about that, given
Oh, yeah,
that you
they
have
are.
some feelers out there on that. Can you talk
Yeah,
about it?
there are. There are. They're in your cities. They're in Vancouver. They're in Calgary, probably Quebec. You know, that's what they do. They infiltrate.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I covered stories about Mexican drug smuggling way back in the 90s when I was working,
Yeah.
at CTV back in those days.
Mhm.
Mostly it was marijuana at that time, but now we're dealing with much harder drugs. Is this really this stuff with Trump and the 51st state and the tariffs? Is it really about border security though? Is that one of the,
No,
or
it's
is it
more
the main issue
economic.
for him?
It's more economic right now.
Yeah,
We just want to get all this trade balance settled out so it's even for everybody. And so they'll continue to work the numbers there after these tariffs take place. Um, and I would say they'll probably go away. They'll work it out. If you have a good new government, Trump will work it out with your new prime minister. So I mean, it's the future, but the world's in trouble right now. It's been in turmoil for the last 4 years, particularly because of the United States and our lack of leadership, having not had a leader for 4 years, and a very corrupt CIA, corrupt government. It's never been known in our history as it is now. The left-wing ideologues. I mean, it's just incredible, doing away with uh, critical race theory, DEI, transgender crap. Yeah, guys going around dressed up as pretending they're girls. I mean, for God's sakes, get real.
yeah.
There's
Well,
only two,
I think you have the same
there's only
issues
two
down
genders.
there in the U.S. as we have up here with regard to
Yeah,
the culture wars.
yeah. We got your teacher up there with the big balloons. You
Oh,
ever heard?
that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
That
That's
was on
that's right.
television all the time. So we have problems, but we can solve them with rational people that don't have. I wrote a book you ought to get. It's called Reality Prison. If I may tell you the story about that.
Sure. Yeah.
I headed up a delegation to go to Cairo, Egypt in 2014 to meet with General al-Sisi, and that was right after the second revolution in Egypt. Maverick was overthrown in the first revolution. And then the Egyptians elected Morsi, who was a Muslim Brotherhood guy, and completely tore the economy apart, destroying freedom of religion and so on. And so they threw him out. And General al-Sisi, who was the head of the armed forces in the interim when I was there, and Obama had cut off, and our Congress had cut off all the military aid at that time to Egypt, because they were very dependent on our helicopters and aircraft and other military type equipment. And so the Egyptians were really pissed off, especially the generals. So I go in with my delegation, and we're sitting in Joe Al-Sisi's office at the JCS headquarters there, Joint Staff Headquarters. And one of the major generals had gone to the Army War College in the United States. He was furious. He said, after 40 years of being friendly allies, you just cut us off at the knees. And General Al-Sisi came forth and he says, listen, I'm trying to rebuild my country, my economy. I could, the Suez Canal, protect that. I've got trouble over in the Sinai, south of Israel. I've got two failing nations, Somalia to my south, Libya to my west. And I've got to rebuild all this. And when I'm elected president, that's what I'm going to do. And then he turned to me. He's only 8 feet from me. And he says, why does America always tend to make its decisions looking through a political prism rather than a reality prism? Bam, light went off in my head. My God, he's right. You can't solve anything politically. You got to always deal with reality. And that's what my book's about, reality prism. You have to look down at the facts, then you can solve the problems. But if you start making decisions based on politics, you'll never get there. You'll have constant chaos, and that's what we see. So any of these guys that get in office, they got to look at the reality of the situation. What's the economy doing? How's our military? Down the line. And don't bring it in because of left-wing politics or right-wing politics. Reality, that's what we have to deal with, the real world. That when you start thinking like that, the whole world opens up for you.
Very interesting. That makes me think that you must be well versed in the philosophy of Heidegger, Dugan, and you probably have listened a lot to Professor John Mearsheimer, who subscribes to political realism, because that sounds to me sort of like um, an easier to understand version of political realism when you say, don't live in a reality prison. You must be familiar with their work. Is that sort of where you
Little
got
bit,
those
yeah.
part of those concepts?
No, my background goes to the great generals of World War II, who I was trained by: General Patton, General MacArthur, General Eisenhower. After World War II is when I went into West Point. So all the influence of these great thinkers like Patton, and they all had a vision. It's like Trump. He's a great visionary. All great leaders have a vision. They can look out there. Most people don't have that capability. But when you look at what they try to legislate uh, in the different countries, and you apply a political overlay to it as an ideology, because that's what politics are. Uh, but if you look at it to say, okay, let's look at the Pentagon, the military now. Uh, well, we'd rather take the money and move it over here rather than making sure our military is strong, because we have problems there, but we want to do these social programs and all that stuff. And they start getting into the ideologues and this crazy political theory stuff. And that's why all great leaders, they've dispensed with the politics. Go back to all the Roman legions and the Roman generals. They dealt with reality then. And you look all the way through history, all the great leaders didn't get there because of political ideology. Other
And
than
when you
maybe
when
Stalin and a few others, in Russia and in China. But they then had to move to capitalism to survive. So you got communism, capitalism.
True.
And that's what
Yes.
you had in Russia, and Russia's developed very nicely since then. And of course, we see what's happened in China just in the last 5 years. So, but we try to educate our people that go into Congress down here and senators. Once you get there, take politics out of it. Don't vote for something just because it's politics. Vote for it because it will solve the problem. Hard to do.
Yeah, and when even when I was in college and university studying, politics, political science, um, political realism came into play there. And when I listened to even Steve Bannon, who just this week talked about hemispheric domination being sort of the goal for Trump, you see the same um, approach with Putin in Russia right now. Because there's a longer term goal with him to reassert the Russian Empire and this through this
That's all
concept of
BS.
your
That's
of
all BS.
Eurasianism.
Yeah, and that's all BS.
But isn't it, if you're looking at things through the lens of political realism, kind of
Right.
here's what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
is if you're a smaller nation like Canada,
Hmm.
and you don't have the same degree of military power or economic power, and you're living right on the doorstep, or you're actually like even joined geographically to a
Right.
superpower, there's a philosophy, if you will, that through a natural progression, the smaller nation will eventually be absorbed by the more powerful nation. Is it your view that that's sort of the process that we're engaged in right now? It's a natural process where a place like Canada is slowly reaching a point where it ready to be absorbed by the larger, more powerful nation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all doable. Whether it'll happen or not depends on the Canadians, Americans, and how do you come to pull that all together? But like Putin, I set up the first meeting between Putin and Trump in March of 2017 when I was in Moscow. But you talk about a realist as Putin.
Mhm. Yeah.
He doesn't want the rest of any other countries. He just wants those four provinces. That's all. And they're all pro-Russian. They all vote. They want to be Russian. But then you got the Azovs running Zelensky, the Nazis in Kiev, the most corrupt nation in Europe. And now Trump's demanding they repay us in minerals because they have tremendous mineral deposits in Kiev. But that's going to come to a conclusion. But there again, Trump is going to deal with reality. Let's stop the killing. They have over 150,000 Russians have been killed, over 1.5 million Ukrainians. It's ridiculous. And it could have been solved. It could have been solved. But and then we kept pushing NATO on Russia,
Well, that's,
making
you know, I don't subscribe to that. I did for a while kind of
yeah
buy into that. I have a different view on it, but that's fine. I don't need to sit here and debate, the Ukraine thing with you
yeah. I
tonight.
mean,
Um,
so Putin's not all wrong in this thing.
yeah, I wouldn't say he's all wrong. I wouldn't say
No,
he's
he's
all wrong.
mostly right.
I wouldn't say he's mostly right.
Yeah, he was. We
I
took
don't
the
think so
four
because
provinces.
I would argue that Ukraine is a sovereign nation state and
Well,
he has
sure
no
it is.
business being in there, period,
Yeah,
with his military.
yeah. Except the Western Russian that the Azovs and Zelensky bombed for 6 years since 2014.
Well, that
You can't
in I
believe the
mean I can
number.
we can get into it if you want to, but
No, no, that's all right. I'm just saying they're
it
pro-Russian, and they wanted help from Putin, and he went in and rescued them
well,
from the
that's the
Azovs.
Russian narrative, but it
That's
certainly
true.
didn't help when Putin was arming the separatists to fuel the civil war, and it's I mean, there's two sides to the story, and we've only really been getting, in my view, one
Yeah.
side through the information war over here because one side's been far more effective than the other. But as
Well,
I've been digging,
my
I see it a
intel
little
guy,
differently.
one of my intel guys, he's been in Moscow, Russia, twice over the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And then my feed that I get out of there, the people that I know, you get a whole different perspective when you look through the prism of Putin versus NATO and the Western European nations and the United States.
Yeah, you sure do because he looks at the world completely differently,
Yeah,
and he has an agenda, as each
sure.
side does, right? And
His
you would know
agenda,
a lot
his
about that
agenda,
because,
his agenda is the four provinces. That's it.
well, then why doesn't he stop?
Well, Ukrainians keep fighting. They don't want to stop. They like the $350 billion we've been giving them,
I'm
which
not
is
so. I don't get the sense that Zelensky enjoys the money more than to the point where he wants his people dying. He seems pretty willing to come to the table and negotiate, but Putin's not ready to do that
It's all
right now.
about money. Do you know Zelensky's wife just bought a casino in Cyprus?
That's not true.
Yep.
No,
And
it's
they
not
all,
true.
well,
That's
they also,
it's not true. I've looked
they,
into it, and that is pure propaganda. But then you would know about that too, because that's kind of your stock and trade, isn't it? Propaganda and information
no,
warfare.
no,
You would know about that.
I don't deal in propaganda, only the truth.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what you mean by like white. How did you
White and
phrase
black.
it?
Yeah.
White and black, right? So
Deal in
you're
the
kind of a
truth.
white hat.
I deal in the truth only.
Yeah. Um,
Politics and everything else. But anyhow,
actually,
we know
yeah.
it's been a money laundering operation over there, and it's going to come to an end. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, we can move on.
We're going to get Elon Musk over there and do an audit pretty soon.
Yeah, I think he has a conflict of interest too. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop there, which will probably come much later on. But yeah, I don't think
We're,
the
we're, we're
Republicans are
uncovering
necessarily squeaky clean on things either. Um,
we're uncovering unbelievable stuff that our corrupt government has done with the people's money. Unbelievable.
yeah,
You won't believe what's going to come out.
no doubt. I mean, I'm all
It'll be
for cleaning up
mind-boggling.
corruption. I'm all for cleaning up corruption. Actually, I was kind of hoping we could talk a little bit about psyops and your expertise in this area because it's something that we talk about from time to time here on the program. And I know that you wrote that oh, I found it here because I kind of keyed in on it. What was it called? From psyop to mind war: the psychology of victory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's available online through the Internet Archive, free of charge, actually. So you don't even have to pay for that one. Maybe I shouldn't have told them that. Is there a book that they can buy so that
No,
you can sell them a book?
that's an interesting story. I wrote that back in 1982, and I was asked to write it by the Pentagon because of all the mind war and propaganda that was coming out of Moscow, Russia, and so on since World War II. And of course, the Russians are very good at it, as the Chinese are. So I wrote the article, and anyhow, I sent it back to the Pentagon, and it was too powerful. They wouldn't print it. And anyhow, what I said in that article is actually what has happened in the 2000s, if you read it carefully.
Yes, indeed. I would say you could almost argue that this is a blueprint for it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that powerful and maybe even dangerous
Yeah,
in
I
its
think
own way.
information is dangerous.
It
This,
absolutely is. Yeah.
yeah.
And when you say that, and this is something else that I keyed in on here because I did speed read some of your material today. Um, and in that article, and I highlighted something here. I have to find it to bring it up on the screen. You talk about only dealing in did you say truth or reality?
Reality,
Reality, right?
which turns into truth.
Which turns into truth. That's an interesting point. Um, I gotta find it here because I want to get the wording right. Can you explain what you mean by that? It turns into reality?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of examples. When you look down right now, I'm looking at my hands.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you.
Yep.
That's reality. Okay? I
Yeah.
see you broadcasting. That's reality. I see when an airplane takes off from an aircraft carrier, and we've lost, a couple planes here in the last few weeks in the United States. But then
Uh-huh.
when you get down into it, are there going to be cover-ups? Or are we going to find out the reality of what made that Black Hawk helicopter go into that commuter jet? And so what we've had is a manipulation within our government of really reality, and the left-wing Democrats and the Republicans to a degree manipulate that information to their own advantage point and put it out as the truth. And they call that now misinformation or disinformation.
Uh-huh.
And so when you get into the bottom of things like Elon Musk is doing right now, getting into the transactions in our U.S. aid for international development, my God, wait till it comes out with the EPA, environmental protection. That's next. Wait till he gets into our Pentagon and finds out all the money. I mean, this is going to be unbelievable. And the American people are tired of it. We're tired of these people wasting our money on all sorts of junk.
Mm-hmm. So back to what you wrote, it says
Yeah.
this is from your article. Unlike PSYOP, mind war has nothing to do with deception or even with selected and therefore misleading truth. Rather, it states a whole truth that if it does not now exist, will be forced into existence by the will of the United States.
Yeah, that's a tricky one there. And when we talk about mindware, that's basically taking information and using it in a war type of environment.
Yeah.
Okay, and that war is turned not just between battling nations. Now it's turned against our societies with disinformation, misinformation,
Yeah.
basically portrayed as real information or factual information, but not manipulated. Um, and so it's very it's very difficult to explain everything goes on between people's minds, and I mean, people
Well,
get early
as I kind,
conventional.
is the way I interpret what you wrote there. It's like if you, and this actually goes back to Heidegger, the philosopher. If it reality, and even Dugan will say that reality is open to interpretation. All reality, everything is open to
Yeah,
interpretation.
that's right.
So how you describe it, how you perceive it. And
Yeah.
so if you're involved in information warfare or
Mhm.
even a psyop, you don't, it's not that you're lying, it's that you're telling a version of the truth that if told enough and asserted enough, and if you
Right.
convince someone that something is true, then it becomes reality for them or truth.
Yeah, I mean that could be interpreted that way. But again, you get down, you can put out reality will always come to the surface at some point in time. It's black and white, or it's red and blue. It's
Mm.
that computer, all that stuff on my wall. That's all reality. It's there. You can touch it and feel it. Uh, but a lot of that disinformation that does come out, it's like made up as the truth. Uh, yeah, the mind works in many different ways over the centuries, and the evil minds, of course, leads us down different roads than a mile that's of a free, good spirit, honest. Like at West Point, we've tried to change some things up there now and get back to our motto, duty, honor, and country. A cadet does not lie, cheat, or steal. That's reality.
Okay, let's
If
take
you
a little break because
steal,
I need to take a
lie.
break. So I'll take a break, and we'll be back in just a minute with more from Vallely, General
You said it
Vallely.
right.
I
Yeah,
have to get the
good.
pronunciation right. This
Right.
Anglophone up here in Kanakistan. Stay with us.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so we're back, and yeah, we're talking about reality. Now, there's reality. What a concept. That
Yeah.
was Robin Williams, right? Um, and
Well,
so,
look what the media does. The Hollywood movies and all that. How they can manipulate the mind of the children, and TikTok, which
yeah.
is highly debated right now. And so, I mean, if we can just nurture our young to deal in reality and not get off track somehow by a lot of people either in the schools or so on, and parents be more knowledgeable and about what their students are, what their children are learning in school. Math, which is reality, 2 + 2 = 4. Okay.
Well,
Physics,
that's a
3 + 3
construct.
= 4.
There are human arbitrary assumptions made or cognitive impositions imposed. Like so. Who says that something is a foot is 12 inches? Somebody decided.
We're going to be totally confused when we leave the show today, Rich.
That's right. Well, I'm pretty confused these days because we're in a new information age. People, I think, are having a real hard time keeping up. We have Trudeau over in, I think it's France today, at an AI conference,
Right, yeah.
right?
Our vice president's there too, Vance. He went
That's
on that
that's
today.
right. That's right. And I mean, this is the topic maybe of the most concern. This is maybe the most important thing we need to be dealing with right
Yeah.
now, and coming up with um, maybe policies or a strategy to deal with AI. What are your views on that?
Well, I use an AI program now in our publications and writing to proofread. And so it's so great. It's unbelievable. I can proofread chapter after chapter in a half hour, an hour, whereas before I had to go through it line by line and read it. So there's going to be a lot of positive things in my opinion. I'm not a real techie guy, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I think it's got to be carefully watched. Worry about the manipulation of any of that. Again, varying from the truth to what's not the truth, you know. And will AI be able to differentiate the truth from the untruth, like our minds can do?
Well,
You
that's
know,
why I've been saying for a long time. I mean, I know that you asserted in that article, for instance, that Canada's election was rigged because of Dominion voting machines,
right?
which I can tell you that's an inaccuracy,
No, it's not.
100%.
We have proof of it.
Well, I can tell you that it's not accurate because Canada doesn't use Dominion voting machines at the federal
Well, they
level.
they may not, but it's on the second floor of that building in Quebec.
Well, the company is in Canada, and they do use
Right.
Dominion voting machines at other levels. And I know for a fact that it's not used in federal elections because I was employed by Elections Canada 2 elections back as a poll supervisor
Yeah.
when the election was on. And so it's
Well,
all paper ballots.
they diverted all their attention and marketing to the United States.
Well, yeah, that's true. But what was the point that I was going to make? It wasn't even about that actually. Um,
Yeah.
but what I was going to get at is today, I don't know how we can have free and fair elections, like truly free and fair,
Go back to the old
because
way.
there's so much manipulation by all
Mhm.
sides in the political process, including foreign actors, because of social media and now because of artificial intelligence. So it isn't
Mhm.
just, and we've tried to control political advertising with regulations, but now with social media, it's almost impossible. I think it is impossible at the moment to control um, malicious information, disinformation, people misdirecting, and even just outright straight up lies and fabrications.
Yeah, well, that's what the computers can do. But if you had them a hand filled out on voting day and handed in and validated, that's what we got to go to and get rid of the machines.
yeah, well, we do that in Canada. It is
I
it
would
is paper
recommend to
ballots, but
validate what I said
um,
about Dominion. Go
yeah,
back to a software program called Hammer and Scorecard. It's in my books.
uh-huh.
I'll explain the manipulation of the CIA, and we know and works with us the guy that wrote the Hammer and Scorecard, and that was sold by Obama to the Chinese, and that's why they influenced our elections in 2020 to a degree.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. There's all kinds of foreign influence, even up here in Canada. I know there is real concern about what kind of foreign influence there might be with some members of parliament who have been identified as possible,
Yeah,
well, as witting and or unwitting participants in foreign influence, without, actually coming out and revealing who those people are, CSIS.
yeah.
Um, so that this is a real concern. Foreign influence of any kind in my country is always a concern.
Well, look who's been the most guilty of that. Our CIA. Our CIA has been guilty of so many coups and unbelievable things they've done in other countries that they didn't have the
Mhm.
charter to do, and started using their influence in operations in the United States, which is forbidden by law.
Yes, that's quite correct. So, I mean, you're not allowed, right, to uh, engage in psychological operations within the United States against
Correct.
American citizens, correct?
Correct.
So that you can only do that to people in other countries, and other countries are doing it to you.
Well, as I say, it's been a strategy and tactical situation in the military back to the Romans or even before the Romans, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's very
The
true.
Trojan, what was that's what the Trojan horse was.
Yeah. I think on your website, actually, it says that you provide intelligence to the DoD and the CIA.
No,
No, isn't that what it said on your
just
website?
the military. Well, made the CIA. No, we don't provide it and haven't done that for quite a while.
Okay, so maybe that's out of date. I'm pretty sure I read that on there, but it
I
doesn't
would
matter.
until we get our new CIA chief. Well, I guess we have him in there already. Yeah, Nunes has already been approved. Yeah, he'll do a great job of cleaning out that mess.
How do you feel about Tulsi Gabbard having access to all the?
Fine,
Uh,
she's good.
yeah, you don't have any concerns about her as the Democrats do.
No, they're just trying to a lot. Just trying to dig up all sorts of stuff on her, as well as Cash Patel. But hopefully they'll get through this week. We'll see.
What's with I hate to say this, but I can't resist. What's with his eyes? I call him Crazy Eye Guy.
Yeah,
Maybe it's just that photo. I don't
no,
know.
I think it's
Get
probably
that
from
guy a
birth.
better portrait.
No, I think he has an eye defect from birth.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry I said that then. Now I'm
Yeah,
embarrassed. I don't mean
get
to make
awful
fun
mean
of him.
there, aren't you?
I didn't mean to pick on him.
Poor guy's got a bad eye and you're bad mouthing him.
I thought it was just like a bad photo or something, man.
No, it's
That's
got,
what
it's
I
got a
thought it
bad.
was.
Some eyes get, what do they call that? They get offset a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what you would call that.
There's a name for it. I can't remember.
I'm sorry, Cash Patel. I apologize.
his mind's working.
Oh my. Oh,
That's going to
where?
be a close call, though. I think an RFK Jr. for our new health guy, Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
The left is afraid of everything in this country now because they've been pounced on so badly, and they're all scraping. The Democratic Party of the United States is history, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they're certainly on the back foot now. They don't have really much power at all at this point. So,
They're morons.
why don't you tell me how you really feel? Oh, oh my! Something else I wanted to ask you about because I stumbled on this online. You mentioned you were in a radio interview years ago, I guess, and I just found it posted. You gave some insight as to what Q is, and this is a mystery for so many people, and so
Yeah,
many people here follow Q. Can
yeah.
you provide clarity on that for me
Well,
and the viewers?
they accused me of forming QAnon and all of that. I had nothing to do with that. I would get it in my emails and read it. A lot of it was pretty accurate and good. And the best I know is a bunch of retired military intelligence officers that put it together in Virginia. But I never met anybody. I never was a part of it. I got, as I said, somebody started putting out that I formed it and all of that, which I did because of my PSYOP background. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't do anything about my background. I was promoted into those jobs. I didn't think of.
So you've been accused of starting Q or
Yeah,
QAnon? I don't know
yeah,
what you call it. Is it Q or
QAnon,
QAnon?
QAnon, yeah, QAnon,
Q anonymous, I guess,
yeah,
basically, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah. So, but your insight is that it was started by, it is a U.S. military operation of some kind,
Best
and
I know is some retired special ops military intelligence types that formed it, and they
okay.
kept it under the umbrella pretty good. They never did. No names have ever come out,
And it
and
seems
it's
like
sort of gone away now. I think it just sort of got away.
you think Q has gone away? No way.
Yeah,
No way. I hear
I'm
no
getting stuff
people are
from it.
talking about it all the time around here.
Really, I haven't
Oh,
seen it for a long time. I get a lot of information, but I haven't seen it for several years now.
years. Oh
Yeah,
my. Oh no, man. It's so super active. It's a
wow.
huge thing. Come
You
on,
have
you haven't
to.
seen the
No,
huge numbers
honest
of
to
people
God,
at
I've
Trump
seen
rallies
nothing
with
of it.
their finger up in the air. Where we go
I've
one, we go all. Their finger sticking up in the air, and they're
no,
all standing there. On come on, you've seen that.
I'm serious. I haven't
Really?
seen anything.
Okay, because I mean, from what I saw online with this clip, it's like everybody's looking at that clip that you from that radio interview. When was that? How many years ago? It's an old one.
Oh
But
God, that had
I
to go
mean,
back 2018,
yeah,
2019.
yeah, at least that far. So I
Yeah.
mean, you're like the godfather of Q, or in the minds of some people, you are you're the authority on it. I think in many people's minds. But
uh,
that's what it. See there, if you believe something, if you're told it enough, you start to
yep,
believe it, and it becomes
the truth,
reality. So like it or not,
the truth.
General, you are Q.
Oh boy.
Oh well, I
Hey,
mean.
listen, I'm 85 years old. There's nothing they can do to me anymore.
Oh, well, that people, I'll tell you this too. One of the reasons that I invited you on the program is because a lot of people have been mentioning you. Your name pops up from time to time. Like it really does. And a lot of these people are Q people. So it just comes up every once in a while. And then in the last few days, because somebody mentioned to me that you'd written this article about Canada being Canadians being
Cousin,
orphan Americans, they said you
orphan
got to get them
cousin.
on the show. So that's why you're here. Like it or not, you keep bubbling to the surface. Um, you're not comfortable with that. I can
Well,
tell.
it's okay. It's all right. As I said, what can they do to me anymore?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know that they need to or even want to do anything to
I got
you.
my
But
shotgun right here. Can you see it? My new shotgun?
no, I just clicked off there. Show me your shotgun. Where is it?
Right there on the top. On the
Oh, I
right there.
see it there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm Canadian. I don't have any guns in the house.
I formed a gun company in the early 2000s called Nemo Arms, Nemarms. Pull it up if you can. Nemoarms, nemoarms.com.
NEMO arms
Yeah,
dot
Nemo Arms.
dot com.
Yeah, nemoarms.com. You'll love it. Make some of the best guns in the world.
Here, I'll bring it up on the screen.
Named after my dog,
The
Nemo.
liberals can't arrest me for putting a picture of it up on the internet.
No, no.
So
You'll be good.
actually, there's more freedom here than I think many people in the U.S. realize because I can criticize Justin Trudeau all I want and I don't go to jail, at least not yet. I am over 18, but I don't act like it, so I'll click on that. And here's the website. So you formed this company here?
I did.
And what did you do? Did you sell your interest in it, or you're not involved
No, I'm
anymore? You
still,
are?
yeah, we have a new president and staff. I retired out of it several years ago as chairman and founder. So I just watch what these young people do now. But our sniper rifles ranked top 5 in the world, called the Omen, Omen. The
Interesting.
Omen.
So these are for what kinds of purposes? Like some of these, not all of them for hunting,
Hunting,
self-defense.
protection,
Hmm.
yeah. And we do a lot with the military sales. Saudi Arabia and I think it's Qatar now are two our biggest buyers in the Middle East.
So you're involved in, so you do supply some military domestically and foreign
Right,
as well?
right. Our foreign sales have to be approved by the State Department.
Right.
Yeah, very tightly controlled.
So just coming back to Kanakistan, where do you think this is going? Uh, are we looking at some sort of a referendum coming up, or what do you
For
think
what?
Trump's going to do with this? Is he going to try and push this to offer a choice to people?
For what are you
The
talking about?
51st state stuff.
Oh, I don't know. I think he's got so many things. He just signed a number of executive orders today, and more to come. I think he's really going to focus on Ukraine, Russia, get that thing settled. And we've closed the borders. Tom Homan's done a great job on closing our borders down, and he's basically put it on the rest of the people. He uses the economic trump card a lot, if I could say that. And he basically told Mexico, he told Argentina, no, Venezuela, um, things are going to happen economically, whatever, if you don't take your people back.
Hmm.
And they fold to him. They know he's telling the truth, whatever he says he's going to do, and he thinks it out. He doesn't just pull it out of the back of his hat.
Hmm.
He's a very smart guy, probably the greatest negotiator we've ever had in the history of our country.
So the people that you have up here in Canada who are sort of your team, what are they telling you about the mood up here in the country? How are they reading things?
Oh, I have a meeting with one of them, I think, tomorrow. What they are is challenging the government and Trudeau and what he's done and so on. And that seems to be their focus now is getting a new government.
Hmm. And how do you think that that will play out? Is it a lot of legal challenges, um,
Yeah,
trying to
proving that
change hearts and minds, uh,
proving Canada isn't a real country.
proving Canada? Yeah, okay. Yeah. And do you subscribe to that? It seems like
Well,
you
I
do
have
in the
no idea.
article.
These people go back in the records, they found out
Mhm.
a lot of different things that didn't really happen. And I don't know. I can't judge that.
Yeah, like I disagree with them. I'm kind of aware of A lot
Yeah.
of what they say, I don't subscribe to it at all. Um, and when I read your article, frankly, I found a lot of things in there that I found to be inaccurate. But
Yeah.
you know,
Or what you don't believe.
what's that?
Rather than being inaccurate, it's what you didn't believe.
Well, I think there is at some point reality comes to the surface,
I'm not
and
sure. I think that was one of my other guys that wrote that. Uh,
about Canada being an orphan.
yeah. What was that? What was the name of that again?
Oh my goodness, Canada. What was it? I don't know if I may have closed it off.
Strategic CC inside the revolution. USA created to counter. We produce so many things, I can't remember them all the time. We provide a lot of content out there on intelligence and so on.
Canada, America's orphaned cousin.
Canada's America.
It's got your name on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I read it.
Okay.
I don't know. Did somebody write it?
Okay, here it is. Here, yeah.
Did you write it, or did someone sort of author it for you and as a
No, if I put it
ghostwrite
up there, it's been written for our foundation by. I have a lot of contributing authors.
Uh-huh. Yeah, just things in there like the claim that the British North America Act of 1867
Yeah.
is unsigned even to this day. You know, therefore not legitimate. Like, it's not really true because it was passed in the British Parliament. It's not like it wasn't approved or signed or,
I
you know,
think that
just,
was the problem that was done by the British Parliament. I think that's conjecture there.
yeah, you know, but
Yeah.
but Canadian Parliament's involved in it as well, so it's just not valid.
Yeah.
You know, just
Most of that
a lot of
content,
things that they
yeah,
claim that are not true.
a lot of that content may have come from Norm. I don't remember.
Yeah, no doubt. It sounds like Norm.
Do you know who his mother was?
I you allude to some of his family history in that article, but I'm not familiar. Who is
Remember
it?
James Bond? Do you read
Yes.
Ian Fleming, James Bond?
Yeah. Yeah, she's James
Ian
Bond's mother?
Fleming, Ian Fleming, his secretary, what was she called? Uh, oh God, my brain right now. That was Norm's mother.
Ian Fleming's secretary was
Yeah,
Norm's mother?
Money Penny.
Oh, okay.
Ian Fleming, yeah, she worked in British intelligence, and that's Norm's mother. They
Well,
have a
isn't that
very
interesting?
long, century-old tradition in Canada. I guess they owned a lot of property once upon a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Norm's been around a long time. He's dug up a lot of stuff, and he feeds me stuff, and a lot of it, I don't know.
I don't really I would like to talk to you about something tonight that maybe you can help me with, but I don't really want I'm a little reluctant because it's kind of putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's important.
Okay.
And would it be okay if I did this?
Well, I
You
don't know
don't
what
know because you don't know what it is I'm going to do. It's a bug, and I kind of want to keep people safe. And
Uh-huh.
I'll tell you, I'm going to lay it out for you. Your name
Okay.
does come up a lot. And before we came on tonight, somebody sent me a recording.
Uh-huh.
And I know that you've been involved in the freedom movement to some degree, and you were, talking to people during the Freedom Convoy, and I totally understand. But since then, of course, you've been on podcasts, and within the community and certain portions of the community, people talk about you.
Uh-huh.
They kind of put you up on a pedestal, and they think that you have a lot of power.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think maybe some of these people are a little delusional, frankly. and maybe they don't have a grasp of reality,
Yeah.
but to them it is very real, General. And this is really concerning to me because they keep trying to recreate the convoy over and over again. And you're quite right. Some people do want the government gone, and they keep doing things that I think kind of put public safety in jeopardy at times. So last month there was a group of people who were trying to do this again, and they were communicating on a secure radio channel, and somebody sent me a copy of the recording. And in this recording, your name came up. And they talk about a number of things. They were heading to Ottawa, to Parliament, to in these. This is what they were asserting. I won't play the whole recording tonight, but they were going there to overthrow the government in their minds. Okay, so I'm going to play this little clip for you just to show you the seriousness of this, to show you how serious they are about it. And then I'll maybe get you to comment on this, and maybe we can, bring the temperature down a little bit after I play this for you.
And is this General, is General Paul Vallely is involved?
Yes.
Okay. So it means that there's going to be an armed movement at the end of it.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
But you're not supposed to know that. You're very not supposed to do it to know that.
So they keep setting up camps, or so I'm apparently, around Ottawa. They keep going back. In this particular case, the authorities became aware, as I understand it, and they kind of blocked access, and the thing fizzled out again. There was a period at one point about a year ago, I think it is now, where police had to shut down downtown Toronto around the Ontario legislature because this kind of stuff was going on. And they have some of these people, and I hate to even talk about it, but my priority here, my mandate is to serve the public, to tell the truth, and to keep people safe. And when I hear people talking like this, I get very concerned.
Like you.
Oh, here, hang on.
I don't know if you have another solution.
Oh, here.
Okay, so you guys are going down to 27. You'll be the savior of so-called Canada, standing your ground and thinking that you can have some kind of power. Actually, if you could tell me what's the real goal, I might be able to understand, but all of you is going to Ottawa on the 27th to claim what are the demands? Like, what do you guys want? That's what I'm trying to understand.
My goal is remove Zionists.
So when he says Zionists, what he's really talking about here, in my estimation, is to go to Ottawa and remove the members of parliament who he sees as Zionists. That's really where they're going with this whole conversation, and he elaborates on it here.
I don't know if you have another solution, but...
Yes, I have one solution, but you will not like it.
What is it? It's an easy one, but it's not the good one. It's not a good mind.
That's need to kill Zionists.
No. It's not a good mind.
Yes, we need to kill Zionists because Zionists is the cancer of humanities.
And then the plan goes on beyond that, and I keep hearing this over and over again.
That's not me. You notice he had an accent.
I totally get it. Yeah. But the problem here, General, is that they think it is you.
I don't care.
Well, I care, and I think you could do us all a service here tonight. What would you like to say to them? I mean, just tell these people it's not you, I guess.
The only thing I've said is Canada needs a new, strong government. That's all I've ever said.
Yeah, yeah.
And they do. They need new leadership.
I agree with you. I think we do need a new government, and
that's the right.
you know,
That's the right
yeah.
of the Canadian people to do it.
Sure. So, I mean, can you help me out here and
No, because it wasn't
just,
me. I didn't say that.
well, I know, but you tell these people that that's not what you want them to do.
I
I guess
just
is what
said
I'm
I
asking you
didn't.
to do.
I didn't say that. The last thing I would do is try to get another government to have a coup and revolution. I don't use those words. Relative. I do it in some articles, maybe, like we see what's happening in different parts of the world. But I've always said it's up to the Canadians. You've got to, if you want a new government, you've got to do it. And there's ways to do it.
Sure. I mean, I think that, part of the confusion here is that, during the convoy, you're down in Montana, but you're talking to Norm and providing advice during probably the biggest anti-government protest in Canadian history. You have a background in the military. You are a general. You're connected to the government. You're viewed by many people as an authority figure, a very credible person. But you're from the United States,
Right.
so in the view of some, I would say, that is viewed through a lens of possible foreign influence.
Well, that's what I did in Syria.
Right.
That's what I did in Syria.
Right.
Yeah.
And while, it's illegal for, white hat information warfare to take place on U.S. soil, not so in Canada. So it can be interpreted in that way. And certainly our government here at that time did interpret it that way for reasons that are still a little bit beyond me, even though I did read a lot of the intelligence information that was released to the public through the the public hearings that took place after the convoy and the invocation of the Emergencies Act. I did read a lot of the material, but the government, and they said this publicly, they found the intelligence sources here were of the opinion, based on the information they had, that at the core of this, there was an element there that was foreign influenced and wanted to overthrow the government. And then these things keep happening over and over and over again. And frankly, your name comes up from time to time. And I for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that you're just out there on social media and these old posts talking about Q, and these people are part of the Q movement, I would say. So in their minds, that's the reality. But I know that you're an honorable man, and I don't get the sense that this is anything that you want people to do.
No, I've been through too many things in many foreign countries, from Germany and the height of the Soviet-American feud that was going on in the early 60s to Vietnam, Central and South America, drug enforcement and all that. So I've been a lot of things in special operations. And when General McInerney and I formed the Stand Up America Foundation, it was based on lies that we found out that Hillary Clinton did regarding Benghazi. And we started getting into a lot of things at that point in time. And I was with Fox News, for 8 years.
Yeah.
I was their senior guy. I was hired by Roger Ailes 1 week after 9/11. So, and from that time, you get a lot of television, radio, and a lot of things. And people interpret things a little differently sometimes. I try to be straight with my words and real about them, because I have nothing to hide.
Yeah, and I appreciate you responding and helping me out with this, because I'm hoping that just by sharing this information, which came to me today, that we can, as I say, dial things back, bring the temperature down a little bit. The country here, frankly, is on edge. We do have these separatist movements ramping up again. We've had, just like in the U.S., some people who do want to do things that maybe they ought not do, and I know, and I'm glad that you could come on with us tonight to talk about this and provide some good advice and guidance for people to keep people safe.
Yeah, well, what I've told some of the Canadian people up there, don't use my name. I mean, if you want to talk to me, and I'm looking at things as an American, not as a Canadian. Uh, uh, a very good friend of mine dated Margaret Trudeau years back before she had her affair. So I mean, I go back a long ways. And one of my aunts was from Kingston, Ontario.
Yeah.
I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I used to go to Canada quite a bit. So, but I try not to put myself in as any kind of a leader. I'll be an advisor. I can tell you certain things, and happy to do that. Some things I don't want to get involved in.
You know, and the problem though with even doing that is that because you are an authority, because you are connected to the military, you have a history in that. You also have a history in information warfare, and then to even speak to people during a crisis that the country was involved in at that time, and then even now the continued collaboration, communication with people who are involved in trying to unseat the government, either through legal or maybe other means, I don't know. But certainly Norm is not popular with the government. Pat King is certainly on their radar constantly.
I heard he was dying or something.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Somebody told me he was very ill.
Pat King?
Yeah.
I don't know. He was just in court he's going through sentencing, and you know, and his name comes up all the time, as well, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, so and this is all, you know, the government very focused on him. They absolutely shut him up because they don't want him talking to people. He's just getting his social media voice back now.
You have a totalitarian government up there, so get rid of your totalitarian government and get back to freedom and free exercise of free speech. That's what you be telling these guys in your government. Lay off the people. The people are who you represent. You work for the people. People don't work for you. So,
Indeed. Yeah. I'm all about that, man. I'm about free speech and freedom. Yeah.
Left-wing ideologues like Trudeau and the others, they don't give a damn.
Yeah.
They don't give a damn about the people.
Yeah. And that's because he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Exactly.
You know, political elite, no question about it. No question about it. Can't relate to the average person when you've lived a life of luxury and opulence, you know, and maybe even some would say decadence.
Well, I just wish the best for the Canadian people in the future, and move towards a nice government that represents you, the people, and not the elites, not the globalists, and get that out of your mind, get back to free speech and what it means, and it's the government of the people, for the people, and by the people, and that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Well, I love the United States. I really do. I don't really want to become the 51st state, but if we are taken over by someone, I can't think of a nicer country to have invade.
Better cousin.
So, you know, I don't think it will come to anything violent or anything like that. I'm hopeful that we can, you know, but, you know, there is manipulation going on. I've seen it through social media over the past 2 years. I predicted this. I knew this was coming 2 years ago. I could see, and I think even when I listened to Steve Bannon talk about, you know, what Trump's really up to here, I agree with him.
Yeah, I know Steve quite well.
Yeah, and I think he's right on the money with this. He knows exactly what is happening in my view.
Steve even said on his show I was his favorite general.
You're my favorite general now, honestly, and the reason you are my favorite general is because you allowed me to ask you some tough questions, and I appreciate that very much, and I think that having you on was extremely helpful to provide clarity, some different perspective, and again, I hope to help keep people safe tonight, because some people out there do have a little bit of trouble grasping reality. And I know that you're all about not just freedom, but also peace, ultimately.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for inviting me on. We'll have to do it again. See what develops in the next couple of weeks.
I would really like to have you on. And again, this whole thing is going to continue to play out. And, not just the Canadian thing, but I'd really like to come to you and use you as a resource in the
Sure.
future on all these international matters, if we could. And sir, I'm an honor again to have you on this evening.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much,
I'll get you
General
signed up
Vallely.
for our newsletter too, Rick, if you'd like to receive it.
That would be fantastic. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
And there you go, General Vallely. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But I'm just, like I said, an Anglophone Canuckistanian. I will be back in a few minutes, and we'll just touch on some of the top news stories of the day. And then, yeah, we'll probably continue for about another half hour. And no call in tonight, though, folks, because we do need to still touch on the top stories of the day. Hang in there. I will be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, and today, yes, President Trump did proceed with the 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel coming into the United States, including those from, of course, Canada and Mexico, and the UK, actually, as well. Just kind of a blanket tariff. And this is substantial. I mean, he didn't wait the full 30 days. He didn't wait hardly at all. He said that there was a 30-day pause on tariffs, and then today he just we got the hammer put down on us. So boy, this is steel and aluminum tariffs 2.0, because he actually did impose tariffs like this in the last time he was president, but they were only on for a short time and then they were lifted. But that it did happen. This is going to have direct and immediate impact on Canada and Mexico. And I can't help but think that this is somehow tied. Well, it is absolutely tied. How much, though, to that meeting just days ago that Trump had with the leader of Japan, because Nippon Steel is in the process of trying to acquire U.S. steel. And the rhetoric on that from President Trump has changed somewhat from the campaign to now his presidency. During the campaign, he was opposed to Nippon Steel acquiring U.S. Steel, the company. Biden also blocked it. Now Trump's in office and he's pivoting. And he now is saying that Nippon Steel is going to provide I'm paraphrasing here, but a massive or a substantial investment in U.S. steel, which in my mind sort of amounts to the same thing. They're buying the company. Today it's an investment. During the campaign, it was foreign control. But I think there will be regulations put on that. So we'll see where all that goes. But very serious stuff. And it's having it's already having a major impact on the economies in both Canada and the U.S. Now, also today, Canada's ambassador to France, Stéphane Dion, liberal, came out and said that Trump's invasion threats to Canada and other nations violate international law. He's Canada's ambassador to France. This, of course, all happening while Trudeau was in Paris to attend the Global Summit on Artificial Intelligence. And he met over there with Emmanuel Macron in France. And it does actually at this point too. I mean, it does not matter what Trudeau does. He just gets mocked and ridiculed because people just hate him so much. So he can do no right in the eyes of the public at this point. So the sooner he leaves, I think the better off just everybody will be, especially his own party. Pierre Poilievre, conservative leader today, sending out emails soliciting funds because he's indicating that the conservatives believe that the liberals will call an election as soon as their leadership race is completed. And who is likely to take the reins? Probably Mark Carney. He seems to be their heir apparent. Chrystia Freeland struggling, pulling up the rear. We'll see where it goes. What other news do we have? I mean, Trump is just sucking the oxygen out of the whole world, not just the room, as I've said many times. So, like, it's hard to do a newscast and not have Trump in every story because he's just looming larger than life over the entire globe at this point. I'm just going to look in the chat here. You know, the other thing, and I have a little bit of a different take, maybe not a different take, my take on the issue with the steel tariffs in particular is U.S. companies have not really been competitive for decades. Their steel generally priced about 10-15% higher than Canadian steel. And that's because, as I've looked back on it over the years, the company U.S. Steel in particular, the ownership failed to invest in new technologies. They didn't put profits back into the company to keep it current, modernized. In Canada, our companies have modernized. A lot of what is produced in Canada is now created or produced with electricity, not with conventional fossil fuels. And it's very efficient. It's cleaner. It produces a product that, because the equipment is much newer, that comes off the process at a lower price and of premium quality. And some of this, the ovens that are used over there by U.S. Steel are, over a century old. That's how old it is. And that's part of the reason they're having trouble competing with steel, especially from China, but also from Canada. And it's the Chinese steel produced at massive scale with real economies of scale because of government, I would say, supports, which may be unfair, but nevertheless, they have the economies of scale over there to the point where they set the benchmark price globally. Now, they're, I would say, the world leader in steel production. But UK tonight as well, sounding the alarm on this, and it's gotten to the point now where we're seeing some people looking to the royal family to try to do something on the diplomatic front to convince Trump to kind of back off on some of these tariffs. I don't think that's going to matter one bit, frankly. That might even backfire. He might find it distasteful. But people are looking for a solution to this because Trump he really is, not just causing waves. He's turned this whole world upside down in the space of just a few weeks. So there you go. I'm just going to look in the chat. Anybody got anything to say in the chat tonight? Who's with us? Just going to scroll back a little bit on the YouTube chat first. Antonio, how are you tonight, sir? Does anyone know if the general was for or against Canada, a state? He's he's in sort of in favor, Antonio, of Canada joining the 51st state. If you read his Substack article, he really, he does advocate for Canada being part of the United States, says that it's actually, it basically is already or was. And again, because Canada isn't really a country, I don't agree with it. I have a totally different take on all of that. And as I've shown many people here, because I love my country, just as Americans love theirs, I have a copy of the Constitution right here. It feels pretty real to me, but some people try to find lawful or legal, whatever word you want to use, arguments to suggest that Canada is not a legitimate country. And but isn't it interesting now in a time of crisis that, as I just mentioned, some people are looking to the royal family for some sort of security against the United States. The UK itself. Well, over here, we've seen people who kind of want to turn to a new chapter in the history of our communities. I won't even say country because they don't believe it's a country. And they want to decouple from the monarchy. So, yeah, no problem, Antonio. He says, thank you, Antonio. It's always good to have you here. And Isabel says, you really want me to say anything after last night? I don't know. That was a fun conversation last night. It wasn't news oriented for the last half of the program, but it was fun. And that's what the community here is all about. It's not just it is mainly about freedom, but it's also about community. A community of misfit toys. That's what we are, right? A community of misfit toys. Let me go over to the Rumble chat and see what's going on over there tonight. Certainly an extension of, or even almost a separate community, really almost the Rumble versus the YouTube group. A little bit different tone always in the Rumble chat. I don't get kicked in the shins as much over in Rumble as I do on YouTube. A little bit friendlier to me. But that's what happens in politics. You say one thing and you get at least half the people upset. I do a pretty good job of getting everybody upset some nights, but that's free speech and I'm entitled to mine too. Can't say I don't facilitate other people's free speech around here. Here's Dragon. Hello, Rising Dragon. Hello, Dragon from Montreal. Revolution is the only solution. He says that's a pro-Palestinian quote. Well, that is, right? It's the Intifada revolution, or so they say. And hello, D. You're in there. And yeah, D says, don't give these people any attention, Rick. Thank you. And Lindy, hello. Be lovely. Interesting. Major Vallely says, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, said he talked to Pat King on a daily basis. Don't you think? Yeah. A little bit awkward, but I get it. Yeah, Pat King. Yeah. Pat King, according to Weeby Jammin, says Pat King is looking at 10 years on the 19th. He could go to jail for up to 10 years. That's right. That is right. That's how serious the government took all of that. And, it's true. There just is an element, not all the people. The vast majority of people who came out to the Freedom Convoy were just regular, everyday Canadians who were fed up with the mandates, fed up with the lockdowns. They wanted it over. That's what brought the people out en masse. That's what it was. But to the government, there was an element in the center of it that they identified as something of a threat to the government. We know that because they've said so. They indicated that during the public hearings, right? The equivalent of an inquest into the Freedom Convoy. There was all of that. It's all two things, even more than two things, can be true at the same time. It depends on the lens through which you see it, your perspective, or what you're even seeing. Hardly anybody saw what the government was seeing. Nobody was aware of some of these people who had these other intentions. And that's why they were kind of, I think, just overwhelmed or overtaken by kind-hearted, patriotic, freedom-loving, ordinary, everyday Canadians who just wanted their freedom back. And they were just out on the street at that protest to peacefully protest. People were just pissed off. And they came out and said, stop locking us down, stop mandating us. That's what most people were there for. But there was that element. And it's still out there, as I just played for you in that recording. And that is not cool. And I just hope that people dial it back, man. How many times have I had to say it? Be careful what you say. There's no need for that. That's what your votes are for. Even if you wanted two things, just a little advice for people. No need for violence because, first of all, if you want to decouple from the monarchy, if you don't want to be part of the Commonwealth anymore, all you have to do is ask. King Charles will let us go. Frankly, I don't even think he likes his job as king. He finds it annoying. You can kind of tell. And many other countries have asserted their independence from colonial rule or even colonial connections. They've decoupled. And they're no longer part of the monarchy. Many countries. The United Kingdom is not the empire that it once was. And they'll just let you go. There's a process for it. You don't have to, they're not going to go to war with us if we decide to leave. So take a chill pill. And if you want that, then just lobby for it. Convince enough Canadians, and it will happen. It's the same thing with the 51st state. The United States won't need to invade because, first of all we have is a few canoes and some hockey sticks to paddle them with, and nothing really to fight back with anyway. A little bit, but not much. And we wouldn't. So no need for anything like that. If it comes down to it and the issue is forced, I expect it would turn into some sort of a referendum in the next election. Or maybe the one after that, depending on how long it takes for all this to play out. And then people will decide democratically. And hopefully our election, and if there is a referendum, it will be conducted in a free, fair manner, free of foreign influence, free of any kind of manipulation through social media. And frankly, yes, I am concerned with what Elon Musk is doing with X, just as I'm concerned with what Zuckerberg has done in the past, continues to do with Facebook, and what Alphabet does with Google and YouTube. They manipulate the algorithms. And don't think that Elon Musk isn't doing that. Of course he is. And Blue Sky, the new sort of, I would say, left-leaning, Democrat-oriented social media platform, which is a new alternative to X. There's a real difference in the tone, and that's because of the algorithms and the way that they choose what kind of content gets pushed up and what kind of content gets suppressed. And that's to satisfy what they perceive to be either their audience or it's to suit the taste or the ideology of, I guess, the executives or maybe the government. And let's not lose sight of the fact that Elon Musk is now the government. He's right in there. He is part of the government. He's part of the machine. In that way, I guess he's the new deep state. And he's digging into the old deep state to create the new deep state. Maybe in a way we're getting a great reset. Maybe just not the one that people were expecting. Wait for the other shoe to drop. I'm telling you, there's all kinds of corruption all the way around, man. It's government. It's not charity. I miss, that's part of why I long for the old days too, because back in the day, we didn't have government coming up with social solutions all the time. We had community. We had churches. We had charities that would help the poor. You didn't go to the government to get donations to help the poor. But today, that's more the way it goes. Anyway, folks, we had a lot of nostalgia here on the program last night, so we don't need to kind of go down that road again. But I know a lot of people are yearning for change. And yes, there is this element of foreign influence. And, you know, Trump talks about rigged elections. Elon Musk is being accused of rigging elections or trying to manipulate public opinion or political opinion all around the world now. And even creating, and we talked about this with General Vallely, a manufactured reality. That's largely what's going on X right now. Elon Musk is manufacturing his own reality. Where right now, I would say he's being portrayed as, he's portraying himself, I'd say, as something of a hero. And yes, a lot of people have it in their minds that certain people are out there, white hats even, going to come to the rescue, and they do want to have another convoy. So I created this song. I wrote it, produced it, another Maverick and the News Brothers tune. And because Donald Trump is always talking about the big rig, right? And making the last election too big to rig, I can't help but feel that there's always some rigging out there, as Johnny from Toronto is always quick to point out. He says, everything's fixed. It's all rigged. The stock market, everything, sporting events, and even elections. And even if we do have paper ballots, as I pointed out here in Canada, there is always the issue of manipulation, public distortions through information warfare, manufactured realities. Heading into the future with AI, I don't know how we make sure that we stay focused on reality. But as we move forward, and some people would like to recreate the convoy, be careful. This song kind of lays out how it could go if there is another convoy and why it might actually end up happening. Because if there's foreign influence right now, it's coming in the form of X, Twitter, Elon Musk, and other social media platforms, but largely X and Twitter, and maybe other people even trying to convince people through the algorithms online that there's a certain reality out there that isn't reality at all, and they're prompted to do things they ought not do. Anyway, this is a song. You'll pick up on it if you listen to the lyrics closely, what I'm getting at here. Just be careful. Let's keep fighting for freedom. But we can only do that if we work every night at getting closer to actual truth. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side, here's Maverick and the News Brothers with The Big Rig.
A shadow on the hill. Donald's back in the saddle, and he's rolling in for the kill. Elon bought him Twitter, paid $1 million a vote. Said democracy's for sale. Let's get this country on the road. They're betting on the truckers, revving engines loud and clear. Rolling through the border, spreading chaos far and near. It's the big It's a billionaire charade. Elon's rocket shooting high while truckers storm the gates. Democracy's on clearance. It's a dystopian debate. It's the big rig, a deal you can't refuse. Stacking votes with money, the whole damn thing's a ruse. Rolling through the north, now topple every crown. Trump's the king of 51, no maple leaf around. They're playing the victim, they're crying fake news, while rigging every ballot with their billion-dollar ruse. It's Putin and his dug-in, Goebbels in disguise, dictators in the spotlight, selling pain as pride. It's the big rig, the game that breaks the rules. Freedom's just a sticker on the corporate back tools. Rolling through the north, now topple every crown. Trump's the king of 51, no maple leaf around. So let the truckers roll, let the engines roar. Freedom, lies, and money open up the coup's back door. It's Elon and it's Donald rewriting the frontier, but the pain they leave behind will last 1,000 years. Donald Tech Ray, yes, rolling strong. Democracy's a ghost, and the tyrants hum their song.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.